It's only entertainment.
Welcome back to the Talking Hedge. I'm Josh Kincaid, capital markets analyst and host of your Cannabis Business podcast.
I'm Arnaud Dumas de Rauly, CEO of the Blinc Group and chairman of the ISO standards on vaping products.
So tell me a little bit about how the Vapegate impacted your business.
I think the vaping crisis, and I hate to say this, was actually good for our business. We've always been known as the quality and the safety specialist. One of the main reasons is because we're one of the only companies that controls the whole supply chain from A to Z. So if I sell you a cartridge, I am going to give you 60 pages of reports on leachability, on Title 21 CFR certifications, GRAS reports on every single raw material we use. That tied in with redundancy in the supply chain. Unlike a lot of the companies out there, we don't have one assembler who assembles all of these raw materials. We have 4 of them. So we were able to build in that redundancy and that resiliency in the supply chain, which I think was very, very important during Vapegate and then followed then by COVID. We were able to double and triple our revenue in the past 2 years.
Nice. What about in other areas? So like Arizona just came on board, very conservative. Washington State, where I'm from, not so conservative, been around for a long time, and the pre-roll market is taking off 20% at least in sales, if not 50% from the previous year. Having said that, Arizona, very, very conservative. They don't like the pre-rolls like we do in Washington State. They're very much going towards vaping. Do you kind of see vaping going in the way that cigarettes did, where pre-rolls won't be as popular? Maybe the e-cigarette phenomenon will pull the vaping cannabis market into that realm, because there's a lot more conservative states than otherwise. I think there's more conservative, even Washington State. King County, Seattle is liberal, the rest of the state is conservative. Where do you see the future of vaping in terms of its competition with other markets?
So I think there's going to be place for all of these consumption methods, 100%. None of them is going to just go away. I do think vape is going to take more and more importance. So you can see it throughout the years. If you look at the BDS or the headset data, you can see that vaping is taking up more and more market share. I think one of the main reasons, and in states like New York, for instance, where it was only vaping for a long time because of medicinal use. Why? Because you can control a lot more what goes into vapes than what goes into flower. Flower is natural. So there's always that little bit of element of surprise. I'm not saying you can control everything, because there's always differences between batches, but at least on the medical side, it's easier to control what goes in, therefore you can control easier what comes out. So I think that's really predominantly why vaping is always going to be around and is going to continue to grow. I foresee in the next maybe 3 to 4 years having vaping be around 50% of the entire cannabis market.
That's huge. How are you going to position yourself to take advantage of 50% market share? You only need 0.5% in order to become a $1 billion market cap. So what do you have in place to try and grab some of that market share?
Well, I think that was true 2 years ago. I'm not sure we'll get that high, but I do get the sense of your question. I think being focused on quality and safety, and that is in our DNA. We want to make sure consumers get safe products. All of these scares, and there are going to be more down the road. We're a nascent industry. I come from the nicotine vaping industry. Every year there was a new study that came out that said it was more dangerous than smoking. Mm-hmm. But when you have data, you can make it tell anything you want. Mm-hmm. Right now there's a big subject, and we're fighting it hard in Colorado, for instance, is THC caps. People are saying, let's cap THC in extracts at 60%. Great. So you're trying to ban additives, so what are we going to put in the other 40%?
Washington wanted to ban concentrates at 10%, which would eliminate the whole concentrate category.
Exactly. It makes absolutely no sense. And if you look at the raw data, in every single state that has legalized, you can see that this is mostly done for teen use and child use. You can see that all these legal markets and all these medical markets have, the teen use has gone down since legalization. So the fundamentals of a new regulation like this, which is data and public safety, aren't even there. This should not be. This is fear-mongering.
Yeah, we've also seen alcohol consumption and DUIs go down in every single state that's rolled out. With your background, though, with tobacco, there's been conspiracy theorists that they've been in the game for a long time, and now we know that that's true. 20 years probably on the back end in Israel doing their own research. Now they're in Canada. They've made an acquisition for a vape company. What is the next step for Big Tobacco to kind of just make their presence known and start gobbling up companies? Will you be one of the acquirers? Are you worried about acquisitions by Big Tobacco? What is that market going to look like when the money comes in and you start to see not only the consolidation but capitulation as people just fold their cards?
I think that's bound to happen, definitely. I think the big tobacco companies right now, they have a big issue, is that in all of their bylaws, their articles of incorporations, and their partnership agreements says they will never touch cannabis. So they have to make these acquisitions through some of their special purpose acquisition companies. And they've already started, but they're not going to go full blown. And as you can see with nicotine vaping, a lot of these companies invested it, crashed it, and now in the US at least, we're going back to tobacco. Because nicotine vaping is fear-mongered, people think it's dangerous. I'm French, I moved to the US 6 years ago. Every year Social Security reimburses me 65 euros because I switched from smoking to vaping. And that's the case in half the European countries.
Wow.
You can see it's totally different. There's a very good illustration of this, and to show the specificity of the US market. I was at a hearing with the FDA, specifically about nicotine vaping. We brought them 95 pieces of research on why it is safer than tobacco, than traditional smoking. And we had someone from HHS on that call. That person from HHS, once we proved that, turns around and says to everyone from the FDA, HHS, SBA, everyone that was there, yeah, guys, we can't use that. That's what they do in Europe. My immediate reaction was, why? Are my lungs different than yours? And it was silence for 30 seconds. And I think that's where we hit the fundamental difference, is the lobbying that goes on here in the US, as much as it's public, it still happens under the table.
Holy shit, that's on fire. Sorry.
Oh yeah, we just had a fire that started here.
Fire! All right, that's interesting. So lobbyists, obviously, whether you're blue or red, conservative, Democrat, lobbyists are behind all of it. What is that going to do? I mean, is it just going to delay the inevitability? Because obviously, like you said, Europe is the same as the US, but I would imagine RJ Reynolds and all the other American tobacco companies don't want vaping, even though it's kind of a similar product. Like, what's the holdup? Who's fighting who?
So let me give you a little backstory about big tobacco companies. They've invested so much money and so much IP on working with tobacco, the product, the leaves, from seed to sale. If we completely switch to vaping from one day to the next, they lost all of that 30, 40, 50 years of investment. So they want to capitalize on that investment. And I think right now, big tobacco's best path is to enter into the growing space, because they have developed some awesome technologies and awesome IP for growing that could probably be used for cannabis. In fact, I say probably, but I know of a couple that are being used. But I think that's really, if big tobacco wants to come into this industry, that's where they're going to come in. And then they're going to start looking at what they can do, and extracts and everything. That is the big difference with nicotine vaping. Because when you're talking about cannabis vaping, what you're going to be vaping and those concentrates come from the plant. With nicotine vaping, what you're vaping doesn't come from the plant. It can be pure nicotine. That's the only thing that would come from the plant. And pure nicotine can be synthetic, can be from tomatoes, can be from potatoes. Here's a fun fact. If you eat a potato and tomato salad right now, and I have a hot dog, and I'm vaping for 1 hour while we're eating, you'll have more nicotine in your system than I do.
Interesting. Because of the pork?
Because there's nicotine in tomatoes and potatoes.
Oh. Weird. Okay. That's weird. Let's end on that. Where can they find you at? Arnaud, state your name, your position, and where they can find you at Blinq on social media or otherwise.
All right, well, very easy. It's the Blinc Group. So at the Blinc Group for all social media handles. And you can find us at theblinkgroup.com. Again, I'm Arnaud Dumas de Rauly, CEO of the Blinc Group and chairman of the ISO standards on vaping products.
Perfect. Well, I'm Josh Kincaid. This is The Talking Hedge. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, or don't. And I'm out.
Thank you.
All right.
Don't forget to smash that like button on your way out and check out these other videos that we've got.